Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today we'll be doing either one of two videos. I'm not really sure how I'm going to format it, but I believe it'll be a March Madness Round of 32 recap into a Sweet 16 preview. I'll probably do it in one video, hopefully it's not too long, and we'll just kind of get right into it. So I thought I'd start off like I did last time with the conference records. The ACC 5-4, American 2-1, Big 12 7-5, Big East 7-2, Big 10 6-7, Mountain West 2-3, Pac-12 3-3, SEC 9-5, West Coast 3-1. So that means now the Big East is the number one conference. Behind them would be the West Coast Conference, which is basically Gonzaga. And moving on from that, I'd be American behind them. But out of the Power 5 conferences, the Big East still has 3 teams left, so they're leading the clubhouse there. And really surprising because people thought the Big East wasn't nearly as good this year as it's been in years past. But we've seen that there's a lot of off-the-court Big East news that I think I'll do in a quick video this weekend or something and just kind of talk about the whole Ed Cooley situation going to Georgetown, how crazy that's all been. Kind of called that a little bit in the hometown heroes, but, you know, we'll move forward now. The upsets, Princeton again, right? They had no chance, according to a lot of people, in either game, but they flat out dominated more in the Missouri game than they did in the Arizona game, as they technically had an easier opponent. But now they go to face Creighton, and it's going to be tough to pick against them. I think that they're not going to win, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself on that one. But, shout out Princeton making the Sweet 16 a 15 seed. Very, very rare occurrence. The only other upset I would say would be Muss-Bus. Arkansas upsets the Bill Selfless coached Kansas. Obviously, I think that had a pretty big impact with how close of a game it was, and down the stretch, kind of getting out coached whoever the interim is. But a tough situation for Kansas. But once again, the reigning champion does not make it out of the first weekend. That's like the 5th or 6th time in a row or something crazy stat. I think it might be more than that. But Muss-Bus, 3rd straight Sweet 16. Obviously ripped his shirt off, went nuts. I'm sure that'll be in one shining moment. But it's crazy to see that he's back in the Sweet 16 again, and that sets up an all-time coach game next week. Guard play, once again, just all across the league. Houston's guards came to play in the second half. They were down, and my goodness, they were suffocating on defense. Miami's guards, very legit, very legit. And the Big East got some really good guards too. Creighton's got some guys, and if you kind of look at Creighton, their biggest issue is depth. But in March, you're playing 40 minutes a game, so you don't really need depth, right? They only go like 6 or 7 deep. But again, March Madness, you tighten up the benches, and that's not much of a problem as it was before. Last two things quickly recapping would be Tom Izzo does it again. Obviously, I'm a Michigan guy, Michigan fan. Tough to see Izzo do it again. It's always an easy premise to be like, hey, I'm going to root for my conference. I'm going to root for the Big Ten. And then it happens to be your rival. I was talking to one of my good friends at work the other day. It's kind of the same thing with Michigan every time. In Ohio State would represent football for the conference always, usually. And it's like, oh, great, let's root for the Big Ten. It's our biggest rival. Now you're doing the same thing in basketball. It's just unfortunate to see that. It's a easier thing to say than it is to actually do. But last point, outside of how good Miami and Houston's guards were, would be Tennessee. These guys absolutely bullied Duke. Now, I was in Tampa for this game. I really wanted to go and drive over to Orlando. We had a flight later that afternoon, but I was doing my best. I was like, hey, listen, Tennessee is going to bully this team. I think they're going to win this game. Duke's not the same as they used to be. And unfortunately, we did not end up going to the game. But who knows? Maybe we sneak out to Madison Square Garden if they end up playing Michigan State, and I'll deal with Izzo myself. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the round of 32. A lot of great games. Really excited for this upcoming weekend. And we'll start, I guess we'll just go chronological order, and we'll start on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. TBS, Michigan State versus Kansas State. Michigan State is actually a 2-point favorite in this game, playing against the Kansas State Wildcats in Madison Square Garden. Now, this is going to be a really interesting game because Kansas State is maybe one of the best teams in the country, and I don't think anyone can ask them what's going on. Like, if you said, hey, name all the 3 seeds, I guarantee you people would forget this team, right? The other 3 seeds, Gonzaga and the likes of those, you can name, no problem. But you look at it, and it's like, Kansas State, wait, they're good? And yeah, they had a really good football season and a really good basketball season. More importantly with them, they have that small little guard that, everyone forgets his name. And the joke was that Kentucky didn't even know who he was, and he went out there and lit him up. More importantly, they have Keontae Johnson. He is the player. I don't know if you remember back in the day, he collapsed on the floor against Florida. He was on Florida, collapsed against Florida State. And they paused the game, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Why is the game paused? Because it was like during the day because it was COVID, so it was weird. But he looked at it, and he had like a heart something. I don't really know what it was, but he was in a coma for 3 days and then came back. And he had an option to take $5 million and be the insurance policy and not play ever again. But he bet on himself, and he's now with Kansas State, liking what they're doing there. And they have an opportunity to go to the Elite Eight and take on one of Florida Atlantic or Tennessee. I'll predict Michigan State to win this game, much as it hates me to say. When you have a 7-seed team against 3-seed and they're favored, that means something, right? So moving on to the next 7 o'clock game, this one over in Vegas. We have 2 games in the Garden, 2 games in the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. Arkansas, UConn. UConn's a 3-point favorite, 3.5 actually, 7:15 CBS. All-time coach game. I mean, they should have, how they have the extra broadcasts on ESPN where you can watch this, you can watch it in Spanish, you can watch this sideline, that sideline, home radio, away radio for all the championship games. This should have an alternative coach broadcast on some other, if it's TBS and CBS, put it on True TV. You can watch Hurley and on TNT, probably playing basketball on TNT. So on True TV, do an alternative coach angle. I think that'd be hilarious because these guys are 2 of the most passionate, I would say, and they do all the facial expressions. They go nuts. At least one technical foul in this game. That's a guarantee. But it's going to be really interesting to see because their teams are real good, both built from March. Analytics love them both. They like UConn a bit more than Arkansas. So I will take UConn in this game. Moving on to the next one here, we have FAU versus Tennessee. Now, there's 2 things with this thing. FAU, everyone hates them now because they knocked out the other Cinderella in FDU. I think that they're a pretty good team. They've been slept on a lot. They were ranked throughout the year. They were a really good team, being 33-3. Obviously, you're damn good. They played in the CUSA, which wasn't as good of a conference nearly as any other one of these, but they're still in it. So, they've done better than a few other conferences out there. I think that's why they have 2 wins, same as the American. The American's kind of a one-team conference as well, but the FAU coach said they're studying Aussie rules football. They're ready to go to war, and because Tennessee bullied Duke, right? You had Filipowski bleeding and, all that stuff. So big win by Tennessee last week, and they look to double it up against the Owls of Florida Atlantic. Tennessee is a 5.5-point favorite in the 9 o'clock game, basically whenever the other Michigan State game ends, add a half an hour onto it. But I think Tennessee will cover the spread here and win relatively comfortably. Now, a lot of people have this narrative that they lost to Kai Ziegler, right? And when he went down immediately, I was like, this team's screwed, right? And everyone's being like, oh, they don't have their point guard, la, 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 la. I understand they don't have their point guard. That happened a month ago, right? They've figured it out, and they know what they need to do now to get around it and get ahead of it. They've now brought in Tyreke Key. He is a transfer from Indiana State. He is another off-ball shooting guard, and they figured that if they pair him with Vescovi, that they both can shoot off each other, right? So if they're 2, non-ball dominant shooting guards, one of them can dribble the ball up and hand it off to the other one for an open 3. And they've kind of done it to perfection. They've also gotten some more minutes out of Jahai Mashek. He is a 6'4", combo guard. Again, more of a shooting guard that can't shoot all that well. He'll make analytic people rip their hair out of their head. His favorite shot is that mellow foot on the line, 1 step in, 2. He hits it quite often, though, so you can't really get mad at him. But it looks so weird. He's he'll have an open 3 and he'll put it on the floor, take a dribble in, and then pull up and shoot it and make it a lot. So it helps for him. Obviously the analytics guys would be dying on the inside and outside, but he does his own thing. And Olivier Kamwa, the pride of Finland, him and Markkanen, he's really come on recently. Obviously he had 30 points last game, but the amount of bigs that Tennessee have, they've got Kamwa, Euros, and they've got Jonas Adu, he's really came on it as well. And they just rotate those three bigs in, at least two of them on the floor pretty much at all time. And if they need to go small, they bring in the freshman in Julian Phillips and Toby Aqua. They've both played a lot more down the stretch. And Phillips might be a lottery pick. Aqua will likely stay, but they bring in these youth, and they can kind of go small when they need to, but really they go big. Because Josiah Jordan-James, he's a 6'6" shooting guard that's been kind of the primary ball handler recently, but they can go in these lineups where they go four guys that are 6'6" or taller, and they just suffocate you. That's why I thought it would have been really interesting to see how FDU would have matched up with them, right? Because FDU's got a bunch of small, fast guys, and Tennessee's got a bunch of physical, bruising big guys. So for that matter, I would have probably taken FDU against the spread. But now that FAU is playing Tennessee instead of FDU, I'm going to be taking Tennessee against the spread here. Going into the nightcap, we have probably the best game of the weekend, potentially. Really good game. Unfortunately, it is at 9:45, and you might be a little tired getting into work tomorrow. But it is the battle of the West Coast teams. It is a Final Four rematch, revenge game, buzzer beater with Jalen Suggs and Johnny Juzang. Neither there now. Gonzaga versus UCLA. UCLA 2-point favorite. I like Gonzaga here. This is the least talked about Gonzaga's had in a long time, and I think it's that they're a little bit down as opposed to years past, but I think overall the quality is a bit down this year in teams and players. And if you look at the NBA draft boards, you can kind of see this in the fact that only one of the top five is likely going to be playing from college. Gonzaga, right? They just match up pretty well. Drew Timme, they got the experience. Obviously, UCLA brings back Tiger Campbell and a lot of the guys they've had for a while, but I just think that Gonzaga and Mark Few are just going to outplay him, outcoach him. Obviously, it's kind of a pick 'em, but I do like Gonzaga and the points. I think they'll win outright, so I don't really need the points. But this is a game, if you can stay up for and you can watch, it'll be worth it for you, right? The games start at 6:30, so you can get home from work at 5, take a quick half an hour nap, do some of your chores, and plop down in front of the couch and get ready to watch some good basketball. But, if this was, maybe they moved this game to Friday, people would watch it a bit more, but it's West Coast, so it's always struggling for viewership, unfortunately, because a lot of us, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, do I really care? My eyes are barely open. I can barely stay awake. But you probably should stay up for those games because those are usually the best ones. But Gonzaga, I believe, will win here. So that would set up Gonzaga and UConn, Michigan State, Tennessee for an all-time Elite Eight. Let's move into the second day in Friday. For Friday, we've got a little bit less closer games on the spread. Spreads are 7-7, 10 and 4. We'll start with the first game. Can San Diego State, in their slower, grind-them-down defensive style, stop Alabama? We've got Alabama and San Diego State, 6:30 TBS, Alabama, 7-point favorite. This is going to be in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, they've really just ran through people, they being the Elephants, I guess, the Crimson Tide of Alabama. And they really don't show any signs of slowing down. Granted, they've played only Maryland and Corpus Christi, but they have had a 99.9% win chance in the whole game. Now, this is the first time that they've matched up with a team with a slower style. A lot of people picked West Virginia to play them, and that would have been a tougher game than Maryland, just stylistically alone. But Bama really is going to have to run into a defense here, right? So if they don't shoot well, because tournament teams across the board are shooting worse this year than they have in years past, and if that trend kind of hits Bama, then they could be in a lot of trouble because San Diego State slows it down. They've kind of dealt with a high-octane offense already in Charleston, which they kept in relatively close control. I mean, they ended up covering the spread at the end and taking care of business, and one of the most popular upset picks. But Alabama does what Charleston does 10 times better. So they're going to have to be really up for it. They're playing real damn well. They represent the Mountain West well. Mountain West is 2-3. They have both wins. So we'll see if that continues. I doubt it. I like the Crimson Tide here to win and cruise. They might be up double digits the entire game. Now, I'm setting myself up for a big failure here, and this is not going to look good, but that's just what I think. Moving on to the next game, we've got unbelievable guard play. I mean, this is going to be so good. It might be an instant classic. I think it will be. I like Miami to cover the 7 points against Houston, 7:15 in the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri. This game, man, I mean, it's going to be guard city. It's going to be a lot of good sets, a lot of tough jumpers, and Houston makes those, right? I think Houston will win. I think it'll be a close game. Miami, sneaky back-to-back years, has made a deep run. They were in the Elite Eight, I believe, last year, and they could be again this year. I don't think it will happen. I think they'll be close. But for those of you that dabble in the gambling, Miami is actually at 25-1 to win it all still. So if you think they can win this game, they match up well against the other half of the bracket as well. So if you think that they could beat Alabama here, this is the best odds you'll get them at, obviously, but this is pretty much the same odds you get them before the tournament. So they're still playing Houston. Houston's now healthy, which is scary. We saw Houston not play basketball for a half, and they were down and just turned it on and instantly vaporized and made every shot while forcing Auburn to miss every shot with their stout defense. So watch out for the Cougars because they can really turn it on in the blink of an eye and just get going crazy. It would be great to see a Houston-Alabama championship game because it would just be such pure basketball. Now, moving into the other half of the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky, we have Creighton versus Princeton. Creighton's a 10-point favorite here. Now, a lot of the underdogs have covered the spreads, but not one. When they kind of come up against a superly different matched opponent, I think that will happen here again with Creighton. Similar to the Miami game, Princeton will keep it close. They might backdoor them, a 10-point spread, but Creighton should cruise and be in comfortable control the entire time. They have the depth concerns we've talked about, but maybe they can let some depth come in and give their guys a bit of a rest before advancing against Alabama in the next game. But I think Creighton will win here. This might be the game you can kind of not worry about as much, but this should be going likely starting at the end of the Miami game, so you can probably miss the first few minutes and just kind of cruise into this one. But yeah, it's kind of a boring game, unfortunately, but that's kind of what happens when a 15-seed advances. But huge shout out to Princeton. They lost their best player in the transfer portal to Michigan, Jalen Wellen, and it doesn't matter. They're in the Sweet 16 as an Ivy League, which is a very, very rare occurrence. Final game of the night, awesome efficiency, beautiful game, super slugfest. We've got Xavier against Texas. Texas is a 4-point favorite in T-Mobile. Xavier plays unbelievable basketball, and they're still being not talked about enough. Similar to Gonzaga, they're a really good team and not being talked about. Texas is getting a lot of love now, but they've not really been in control as much of their games. People were able to score on them and move the ball. Xavier is efficient enough where they will score on every possession, okay? And if Texas is not here to play, they've got an interim head coach. He's coaching unbelievably. I think Xavier can win this game outright. It'll be within the 4 for sure, but I think Xavier will come down to the wire, and it's who is going to out-coach in the final 2 minutes. And I like Sean Miller on this battle of the coaches on the sideline. So I think that, along with the efficiency that is off the charts for Xavier, that they will close it out, and they will take on Houston in what's going to be an instant classic Elite Eight game. But we'll see if I can quickly throw together a video, probably Saturday morning or something, and get it out, a quick little preview of the Elite Eight, and I'll do a big recap of the weekend on Monday or something like that. But that's what I have for now. Let me know down below what you think. How's your bracket doing? My brackets are fine. All 3 of my champions are still alive: Alabama, Houston, and Gonzaga. Gonzaga probably the most likely to not be still dancing come the end of this weekend, but we'll see. I still have faith in them. I like how they match up against the potential UConn and Arkansas game if they're to get through UCLA, but that'll be a real tough game. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you later, and peace.